Have you ever wondered how do you be good with money? How to not be an idiot with your money? Some people seem to have it all figured out. Today, we're going to talk just to those points. This is Andrew with the Above Average Investor podcast, and we're talking how do you be smart with your money? How to not be a fool with your money. So first off, you need to understand what is the value of a dollar that people talk about, or what's the value of $100 thanks to inflation? Maybe a dollar was applicable 50 years ago. Today it's kind of more, what's the value of $100? So $100 can buy you a nice pair of tennis shoes, maybe a date, nice dinner. It can buy you a tank of gas in a pickup truck, or it could buy you $100 worth of investments, or it can buy you a $100 bill to hide under your mattress. And so those are kind of different mindsets to have, and all answers are correct there. So the first way is to just go buy things with it: shoes, dinner, tank of gas, a new widget. Option number two is to go buy stocks with it, and they'll produce about 10% per year on average long term. And so when that money goes up, let's say 100 turns into 110, you take out $10 and spend it. Or if you invested $1,000, it would raise $100 theoretically over a year, and you'd take that $100 out as income. Or you could buy bonds at maybe 5% per year with today's interest rates, and then you'll spend that money. And that's kind of the middle class style of investing, the paycheck to paycheck with respect to investment income. The third way is to invest it and let those seedlings per se produce children seedlings, produce grandchildren seedlings, great grandchildren seedlings or dollars, and then you'll spend that money later on. I like to think of it with respect to like agriculture. I feel like it's pretty intuitive to understand then. If you go out and plant a bunch of seeds in the spring, these are different types of seeds for everyone, different sunshine, different rain for everybody. But in general, if you plant seeds in the spring, you will harvest plants or fruits of your labor or more seeds in the fall. And so that's how I like to think about investing. And then if you eat your entire harvest in the fall, you've got to go back to work next spring and replant again. But if you keep a portion of those seeds, if you eat some and you keep some of those seeds to then replant, assuming you have an abundance of dirt or places to invest, which most of us do have abundance of opportunities to invest in. We have a lack of abundance of seeds to plant. And then you can see how a few years later that the widespread harvest of multiple springs worth of planting that you just harvested for more seeds and then you replanted all of those out in the future, you can see how that's just this massive, massive field now. And that's compound interest. So when you invest in the stock market or in rental real estate or in a business and that grows a little bit and you take that income and you reinvest those profits, you reinvest those dividends, and you buy more stocks, and those produce more stocks and more rental income per se, that will just arguably uncontrollably grow over time. And that's why it's exponential compound interest, where you get a little bit those first couple of years. Most of the money is made on the back end though. Like Warren Buffett's made way more of his wealth since age 60 plus than age 0 to 60. And he was a very great investor and a very high income earner during his normal career per se up to age 60s. And then since then though, that compound interest has just taken him well and beyond anything remotely close to what he earned in his traditional working decades. And so those are the different mindsets of the poor class, the middle class, and the upper class, or the rich class, or the top 1%, is they think of their money as a tool. And so when you invest it and it goes to work for you, and this is a diligent employee that doesn't complain, doesn't need vacation or days off or sick time, when you go and invest money, that money then goes to work for you, and then its children goes to work for you, and its grandchildren go to work for you. And you could think of it as people or as employees or as seedlings, whatever to help visualize that. None of those are meant to be taken seriously, but that's how that works with compound interest. And so an example of how to not be good with money is a third of lottery winners are broke within 3 to 5 years. Who thinks they'd be set for life if they won their lottery? Of course, all of us do. But literally a third of us are wrong. That if we all of a sudden our bank account had $100 million or 10 million or $500 million, we would be broke within 3 to 5 years. A third of us would be. That's really mind blowing, and it's really troublesome and almost scary that the financial education of ourselves as a whole is so poor that we can vaporize tens or hundreds of millions of dollars within 3 years. And I don't even comprehend what in the world I'd buy with $100 million. Like, what am I, you're gonna go buy a jet and then, I don't know, drive it into the ground so it's worth $0? Like, it doesn't even make sense to me. But there's plenty of examples out there. Mike Tyson, MC Hammer, Nicolas Cage. There's a ton of famous people who have made millions of dollars per year, if not tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars over their highly successful careers, and then they went bankrupt. These are highly, highly skilled people in their craft. Mike Tyson would pummel me, guarantee it. However, he earned $300 million and then claimed bankruptcy afterwards, which I cannot fathom. And so part of this channel's purpose is just trying to educate not the people that make $300 million necessarily, but just average people in the middle class that you can take responsibility and accountability of your personal financial situation and that of your families, and you can get better over time and have more financial stability and security. It really is as simple as that. And so there's just a lack of financial education in our country, in my generation, in all generations, and that's what's very apparent when you look at some of these statistics. And so that mindset of, when I plant in the spring, I'm not going to eat literally everything come fall. Winter will come every single year. It's not just summertime forever. Anyone who thinks that hasn't looked at 365 days of history. The real moral of the story here is to give yourself future income, not a future pay cut, which is what I would call debt payments. And so when you look back on your past self, you can either, and this is for all of us, we like some things we saw in our history and we would change some things we saw in our past, some of those decisions. But ideally, when you reduce your debt and you grow your savings, your emergency fund, your passive income, you're setting yourself up for a layup. You're putting the ball on the tee for your future self. And when you're competing in the world to buy a house, to buy cars, to pay for your family's needs, it's somewhat competitive and it's a supply and demand game. So if you make $5,000 a month, just for a round number, and you have $1,000 in debt payments, student loans, cars, credit cards, whatever, and your peers have $0 in debt payments, they make $1,000 a month more than you, and that can really add up over time. Or your other neighbor to the other side has $2,000 a month in payments. Your $1,000 a month is way easier to pay for. And so if you started at $2,000, for example, if you can work that down to $1,000 a month in payments, that will make your future self thankful, grateful, and way easier. And then your future self is also going to probably get some pay raises, some higher income. So then the delta between your income and your expenses gets even larger. So you have even more flexibility. And in my experience through life, most people want more flexibility in their future, not less flexibility. I think that's a fairly straightforward assumption to make for most people. It shouldn't be a surprise if you're a diligent worker and in the springtime, you're out there sweating in the sun, planting all the seeds you can, and then you have a big harvest in the fall. And, we have different rainstorms and sunshine and hailstorms throughout our lives and throughout our seasons and years. But it is really as simple as you reap what you sow. And so one thing I always find a little comical is when people say you get lucky in investing in long-term stable assets and you invest for really long periods of time, where no one would say, wow, you got so lucky come fall harvest. You planted all spring and sunshine and rain happened and you got some crops on come fall. And yeah, you're going to get different levels in different seasons and different years, but it's very reasonable to expect to harvest something in the fall if you plant in the spring. And if you plant twice as many seeds, it's probably reasonable to get twice as big of a harvest in the fall, more or less. That's how to be good with money. It's setting your future self up for success, paying off your debt payments, building an emergency fund, and investing just a little bit amount every month, every paycheck for long periods of time, and that can really increase your financial security over time. So I think regularly investing $100 a month, $50 a month, $250, $500, $1,000 a month over multiple years can add up to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, break $1 million. Very reasonable expectation. So hopefully that's encouraging, and hopefully some of you can take some of these lessons and analogies and apply them to your own personal life. Thanks all.